conferences and has held official peace-themed exhibitions during the United Nations General Assembly, in New York, UNESCO's Executive Board in Paris, and several events under the patronage of royalty from Monaco and Dubai. Namira has served as an honorary ambassador for Pakistan and honorary consul in the Principality of Monaco, where she's been residing since 1997. So again, my absolute pleasure to introduce Ms. Namira Salim. Yes.
Art?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Art is my best buddy in space and in the space industry, and I really thank you for this gracious introduction. Thank you so much. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to present this GNF today at the prestigious IAC and thank the IAF for this opportunity. I hope this will prove to be an engaging and inspiring presentation. I'd like to start my presentation with a 1-minute introductory video, which maybe some of you have watched earlier. Since the birth of human spaceflight, astronauts have been captivated in space by the Earth's mystical blue aura, which appears beyond political boundaries, or the overview effect, which returns them to Earth with a dramatic paradigm shift to advocate peace for all humanity. Apollo astronauts discovered the Earth from space when they stepped on the moon, and the plaque they left behind reads, "When men from planet Earth first set foot upon the moon, they came in peace for all mankind." Today, the survival of mankind depends upon international cooperation and peaceful uses of space for all humanity. The ISS has become a beacon for international cooperation and peacemaking in space via peaceful uses of space science and technology on Earth. Moreover, with humanity evolving into interplanetary beings, spacefaring and new space nations are expanding cooperation via human and robotic missions, making space inclusive for all. The world has been ushered into a new space age that is commercialization or democratization of space, which opens the final frontier to everyone, encouraging public-private partnerships in an increasingly complex space environment, triggering a new space economy which contributed over $300 billion in total revenue in just 2016 alone. However, for the development of a sustainable space economy, it is crucial that every person has equal access to space, as we evolved into interplanetary beings from the edge of space to low Earth orbit to the moon, Mars, and beyond. So why not draw inspiration from shuttle diplomacy of the 70s to actual space shuttle diplomacy in a new space age by opening space to world leaders and holding the first peace summit in space in 2030. Therefore, our lead initiative, an annual high-level Zero-G Summit or Zero-Gravity Summit, was launched last week on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly to mobilize world leaders, space actors, peacemakers, youth, and civil society to utilize space as a driver for addressing global challenges. Accordingly, our vision is to propel Zero-G Summit 2030 in orbit in support of Space 2030 to spearhead innovative diplomacy and peacemaking in space. I believe at the advent of democratization of space, Zero-G Summit 2030, which will galvanize our common humanity in space, is closer than we think. Accordingly, convening a Zero-G Summit in space is only within grasp, for which deep space habitats and private space stations will make a fitting launching pad. The idea of a zero-G summit has been endorsed by 3 former heads of state, a prominent NASA astronaut, 3 cosmonauts at the ISS. Zero-G Summit 2030 is being observed by UN-USA, having been presented during the NewSpace Plus 50 process, has been presented at the 54th session of the Scientific and Technical Subcommittee of COPUS, and being recommended as a new item on the space governance agenda towards Space 2030. The response to Zero-G Summit from the space industry has been overwhelming, and it is being implemented by a sophisticated team of visionaries and futurists under the leadership of Space Trust. Now, I would like to, I'm very proud to say that I was able to host our first event in the US on the Capitol Hill on 25th of May with Congressman Jim Bridenstine, who's the presidential nominee for the position of NASA Administrator, Ms. Simonetta DePipo, Director, UN Office for Outer Space Affairs, Sierra Nevada Corporation, Commercial Spaceflight Federation, and with representation from NASA. Now, let me play a video to share the views of the future NASA Administrator about Zero-G Summit.
The work that we've done in this room has not been missed by Namira Salim, who has been involved in all of our organizations from time to time, trying to encourage and promote this idea that space is still a place that can be utilized for peace. And that is a message that is important, that needs to continue to be spread, and certainly a message that nobody in this room or in the United States government would refute. And thank you for your leadership on these issues. And of course, the United States of America and the Soviet Union, at the height of the Cold War, engaged in these same kind of unifying experiences when you think about the Apollo-Soyuz mission, that ultimately General Tom Stafford from my state of Oklahoma had the first opportunity to go across a space station and shake hands with a Russian cosmonaut, which was another stunning space achievement and showed that what unites us can, in many cases, overcome what divides us. In 1958, the message that was transmitted in the world's first communications satellite, where a human voice came from outer space, was a message from President Dwight Eisenhower. And his message was this, quote, "This is the President of the United States speaking. Through the marvels of scientific advancement, my voice is coming to you from a satellite circling in outer space. My message is a simple one. Through this unique means, I convey to you and to all mankind America's wish for peace on earth and goodwill toward men everywhere." This was a Christmas message at a time when you had 2 countries racing into space to demonstrate their political and economic prowess, to demonstrate their technological prowess. And it was necessary for a leader of the world to stand up and say that we want peace on earth and goodwill toward men everywhere. And only the United States occupies a position of preeminence. Can we help decide whether this new ocean will be a sea of peace or a new terrifying theater of war? But I do say that space can be explored and mastered without feeding the fires of war. But when you look at presidents throughout history, whether it's President Bush or President Clinton, President Obama or President Trump, when any of these presidents talk about space and the vision and the next steps, it is always unifying. And what's amazing is the press that comes from it is overwhelmingly positive. But we need organizations like Space Trust, and we need individuals like people in this room that are willing to do the work necessary to continue to build this trust and to end the misperceptions that ultimately could lead to war, because that is critically important. Namira Salim, thank you for what you do and what you have been doing.
I'm totally blown away by this speech whenever I hear it, and I think I'm so honored that the congressman, took so naturally to my thought leadership and gave me his time to actually launch this for the first time at the Capitol Hill in the US in his presence. So this is probably the biggest honor in a long time to come. So the inaugural annual Zero-G Summit was presented on 18th of September on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly, which was just last week. The event was opened with the launch of an interactive Zero-G Summit app, which I will show at the end of this presentation, and incorporated 5 augmented reality apps to provide an immersive experience in the space environment. We secured the presence of 2 former heads of state, space industry pioneers from different sectors, and peacemakers. Zero-G Summit is a global movement for which we will mobilize civil society and youth. Moreover, the event having been held in the US, a major spacefaring nation, I'm honored to say that we had NASA representation at this event. Now, I would like to show you photos from our event, which was graced by the 2 former heads of state of Latin American countries and our keynote speakers. So that was our official photo call with the former president of Costa Rica, Her Excellency Laura Chinchilla, myself, and then the former president of Uruguay, that's President Lacalle Herrera, and Dr. Lance Bush of the Challenger Center, who moderated our event at this launch, and who was also the co-chair with me. We had keynotes from Dr. Deva Newman, the former Deputy Administrator of NASA, and the lady next to her is the former Undersecretary of Defense of the US, and she was the first one in the history to hold that position. And now I would like to play 2 videos of the keynotes we had from the 2 former presidents. So I'll start with the one from the former president of Costa Rica.
Dear friends, to conclude, I would like to recall another anecdote that my friend Franklin told me before. According to him, being in the space produces 2 types of sensations. I open quotation again. Firstly, it makes you feel big and powerful, but later it makes you feel small and defenseless. The second feeling is the strongest one. Therefore, he says, in this space, your enemy becomes your friend. I close quotations. If the space has the power to humble us and to transform our common fears in common understandings, so it should be our enterprise to explore it just like a physical force. We must embrace the fact that our destination entails a collective journey where no one must be left behind, that we are all astronauts on this spaceship of ours called Earth, and that its survival depends on what we do within it as much as what we can do beyond it. Thank you.
Now, before I play the second video of our second keynote from the former president of Uruguay, I would like to acknowledge the presence of Professor Dr. Wander Dunk, who was present at this event, a leader in space law, and I'm so honored to have him here. And I was very honored to have him in New York, and he's going to guide us through the process and make this, enlighten us from a legal space law perspective as to how we can work more concretely towards this mission. So here's the other keynote.
John Kennedy lit up the hopes of many young people speaking about the new frontier. So we all remember one beautiful image, the photograph of the Earth in the middle of dark space, the only blue planet, the only kind image in that world of rock, darkness, and force, one of the smallest planets. And at that moment, I remember, I felt, and many others felt the same thing all over the world, we are unique, we are there, we must unite, we must have common ideals, because we are almost alone in the darkness of space. I think that this Namira's idea is not far from becoming that point of convergence or a hinge of all humanity. If we can learn the lessons of all the other destructive ways of connecting each other we have in the world now. So that's, from my point of view, I'm 76, so I will be looking at the space station from heaven or from the other side. But anyway, I want to be connected with the launching, and of course, my great-grandchildren will be in space with Namira. You will be there, of course. I won't be. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
So after this event, we are working on creating a working group to formalize a Zero-G Summit declaration, and which will recognize basically space as the new frontier for peace, and it will mobilize spacefaring and new space nations towards the first Peace Summit in space by 2030, towards Space 2030, to support SDG Goal 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions, to spearhead space shuttle diplomacy in a new space age, to benefit all humanity via peaceful applications of outer space, and most importantly, to avoid earthly conflicts from preventing international cooperation in space. Now I would like to play another video which marks the inauguration of Space Trust, which was held in Monaco in the presence of Prince Albert II in 2015, when we paid tribute to the Russian spaceflight program, and we had friends from Roscosmos present.
Une exposition innovante qui immerge le spectateur dans l'environnement spatial grâce à des applications interactives, des films, des œuvres d'art et un globe terrestre géant. Une exposition-conférence organisée dans le cadre de l'année de la Russie par Space Trust en hommage aux vols spatiaux russes et qui a rassemblé de nombreuses personnes. J'ai été inspirée par la vision que l'on a de la Terre via l'espace. J'ai voulu rendre hommage au programme spatial russe, car la Russie est la station leader des voyages spatiaux et des activités spatiales en général. Depuis 1950, les Russes sont les pionniers dans ce domaine. Cette exposition retrace donc le rôle joué par la Russie en tant que nation spatiale et ses 20 premières dans ce domaine. Les étapes pionnières accomplies par la Russie dans l'histoire des vols spatiaux, comme l'envoi dans l'espace du premier satellite, des 3 premiers hommes, des 5 premières sondes lunaires et interplanétaires sur Vénus et Mars, ainsi que l'envoi des premières stations spatiales, ont été mises en lumière. Lors de sa visite, le prince souverain a également remis à la compagnie spatiale Roscosmos le prix de la paix dans l'espace, un prix qui récompense le rôle pionnier joué par la Russie en tant que nation spatiale et son parcours glorieux dans le domaine spatial.
This was an amazing event, and as you can see, it was an interactive exhibition, and I created images very creatively to show the first 20 things that the Russians did in space as a pioneering space nation. And I'm happy to acknowledge Mr. Babkin here today to represent Roscosmos. I'm very honored that you have made it. And yeah, now the next step is to engage NASA, and I'm very happy to note that NASA is taking a lot of interest, and we're in the process of creating some cooperation together. Now let me play another video which was basically delivered on the occasion of the inauguration of Space Trust from the International Space Station by 3 Russian cosmonauts, and which was organized by Roscosmos.
The breathtaking view of the Earth that we see from the orbit is proof of how important it is to use space to unite humanity beyond national borders of the development of space, science, and technology.
The International Space Station is a unique partnership of many nations where we all work together to advance both the human condition and the human spirit. In space, we serve together for the great good of humanity. We are happy to join you here today in making space the new frontier for peace. Российские члены экипажа Международной космической станции Олег Кононенко, Михаил Корниенко и Сергей Волков.
So now we need to balance the equation, and I'm sure that I'm very close to getting a similar message from NASA astronauts at the ISS. Here is a special announcement I'm very excited about. Our first mission in space will be a zero-G peace and space diplomacy mission via a CUBE satellite, which we plan to launch by 2020. And we will be broadcasting universal messages of peace in the voices of world leaders and peacemakers through this mission. And I encourage all nations to participate with us by reliving the legacy of President Eisenhower, who was the first leader to deliver a message of peace in space. And I'm happy to note that at the moment, this project is concretely under process and being developed in cooperation with the right people. I'm not going to say much at this stage, but we've started negotiating and our talks in this, on this subject during the IAC. So I'm really looking forward to the implementation. So in short, space actors, all of you sitting here at this Congress, have a role to play and must become the stimulus behind the political will for recognizing peacemaking and conflict resolution in space and peaceful uses of space as a priority on the global political agenda. Therefore, I invite all sectors, especially the youth, to join this initiative to make space the new frontier for peace. Together, we can harness the power of space to unite nations towards innovative space diplomacy, leverage annual zero-G summits on Earth via space industry participation and public-private partnerships, establish collaborative avenues of peacemaking on Earth, in orbit and beyond, to benefit all nations towards Space 2030, convene the first zero-G summit in space in 2030 to support the Sustainable Development Goal 16, peace, justice, strong institutions. In conclusion, space must be recognized and implemented as the new frontier for peace on the national and global space policy agendas towards Space 2030. Thank you so much for being here. And before you leave, we have another exciting presentation of an interactive Zero-G Summit app, which was created for our launch in New York last week. And I'm just going to show this to you. So what it is that we have a low Earth orbit hangar, which you can see in the small screen here. And in this hangar, we are going to put together an international, like a private space station, part by part. So here we do the assembly of a private space station that's going to go up to carry the Zero-G Summit in orbit. This was launched in New York with Dr. Deva Newman, the former Deputy Administrator of NASA. So here it is. We have assembled the private space station, and we will now propel it into space right here, go into orbit with the Zero-G Summit happening up there by 2030. So this is it, and please sign up for updates, join us. We need all of you to support our initiative. The email address is info@spacetrust.com, and we look forward to hearing from you all. If anyone has questions, I would like to invite Dr. Wanda Dunk with me on stage here to help me moderate any questions that anyone may have. Oh. Sure. Please don't.
You want a lawyer next to you for those questions,
right? Of course. I need to feel more secure, you know. I'm talking about the most far-fetched ideas here, so.
Hi there, thank you for your presentation. Who do you envision to be the primary actors at this space meeting that you have planned? Will it be states, private actors, universities? Essentially, there are so many actors in space. Reaching consensus is really politically difficult. How do you plan to overcome that?
Well, I first of all see this as a multilateral effort, and I feel that the UN must back it up. And I'm pleased to say that I have very good support from the UN Office of Outer Space Affairs. So that's the first and foremost. Then we need to involve, the two main spacefaring nations, and it's my diehard desire to have the Russians and the Americans up there together on the, negotiation table, and partners of the ISS. But this initiative is, of course, open to all sectors, and the youth is the one that, can inspire this in the long run, because it is the young people who will become, interplanetary ambassadors in future. So whatever happens on Earth in terms of preparation has to be an effort of all sectors. And then I guess in space, we can involve everyone eventually. Yeah. Sure.
Hello. Can you precisely define what is your mind when you talk about peaceful uses of outer space?
Peaceful uses of outer space, is all about the work that's being done by the United Nations Office of Outer Space Affairs, and it is about including all nations into the work of the Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Space to make space technologies available for all nations, including developing countries, new space nations, and spacefaring nations to have applications in, medicine, disaster risk reduction, the environment, navigation systems, satellites. I think Dr. Wonderdunk is a better expert on that, but it's really the work of the United Nations Office of Outer Space Affairs that I'm referring to in the broader context. Is that precisely what? Yeah.
I think that's fair to say. I think that's certainly the core of what this concept is. You can probably even broaden it that everything which contributes to a more peaceful situation is peaceful purpose. Can you hear me like that? Oh. It includes basically everything which contributes to international cooperation. Does it work now? Yeah, it works again. It includes everything which contributes to international cooperation, understanding, and things like that. And I think the Zero-G Summit idea is a perfect nucleus example of how to broaden that aspect.
Right, and all that's happening at the International Space Station is basically, that inspires us because it is peaceful uses of space science and technology on Earth to benefit all mankind. I don't know if you have time for more questions.
No.
No, okay, so we have to end. Thank you so much for being here, really appreciate it.
Thank you.